Greetings and thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Julio Cárdenas and I'm honored to present at CIVINEDU 2025. Today I will share with you the conference titled Discourses versus Realities, Bilingualism Policies in Cartagena from an Intercultural Perspective. This work was made under the guidance of the second author, PhD Francisco Javier Maza Ávila. It is necessary to mention that this article contributes to the first objective of an ongoing doctoral dissertation at Cartagena University in the program of the Doctorate of Science. This investigation takes place in Colombia, particularly in the city of Cartagena de Indias. In our country, English teaching has been promoted as a strategic goal for international competitiveness. Since 2004, the National Bilingualism Program has shaped this process through initiatives like Colombia Bilingüe, Colombia Very Well, among others. However, when we examine how these policies are implemented in the cities like ours, we find a strong tension between the official discourse and local school realities. The following audiovisual presentation helps contextualize the unique setting of the research. Cartagena is a historical and cultural landmark on Colombian Caribbean coast. Known for its colonial architecture, vibrant street life, and strong Afro-Caribbean heritage. Cartagena stands as a living example of cultural diversity and resilience. It is one of the most visited tourist destinations in our country. The video is accompanied by lively, rhythmic music that reflects the joyful spirit of the local culture, as you can see on your screen. In this context, the goals of official bilingualism contrast with the real possibility for a student and teacher to achieve functional levels of English proficiency. It is important to highlight that in Cartagena, the results are consistently below the national average. As shown in this chart, the green bar representing our city displays lower results in most of the years presented. It is worth noting that the scores are out of 100. And the three institutions under study in this doctoral proposal follow the same thread, with most of the students at the lowest levels of English proficiency, A1 and A-, as indicated by the purple and blue sections. In this image, it is important to mention that A- is a classification that our country uses and represent a level below A1 on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. Nevertheless, according to the result from the past 3 years, gradual improvement have been observed at level A2 and B1, which are the section with color green and orange. This is why this research aims to explore bilingualism policies in Colombia and their application in Cartagena de Indias, as well as the outcome of their implementation in lower and upper secondary education. The central question is how do the official bilingualism discourse connect or not with the educational reality in Cartagena public schools? Empirical and theoretical studies have provided the basis for this discussion. Researchers like Guerrero, Usma, and Valencia have questioned the neoliberal orientation of official bilingualism in Colombia, showing how it reproduces inequalities and overlooks the voice of teachers and local communities. Meanwhile, authors like Bayram and Porto and Sambaglas have proposed critical intercultural approach to language education, advocating for a pedagogy that fosters dialogue, recognition of others, and cultural reflection. From the field of critical foreign language pedagogy, scholars such as Kumaravadivelu and Pennycook have called for a decolonizing and contextualized perspective on English language teaching. In this sense, the present research aligns with an analytical framework that seeks to connect the study of public policy with intercultural approach to foreign language teaching. In line with this view, interculturality here is understood not merely as the recognition of difference, but as a pedagogical tool for dialogue, critical reflection, and the transformation of power relations in the classroom. The lack of a specific study focused on the Colombian Caribbean, especially in Cartagena de Indias, represents a gap that the research seeks to begin addressing. The research is framed within a qualitative approach at this point because it seeks to interpret and understand the social, cultural, and educational implications of bilingualism policies rather than to quantify them, using documentary analysis, which involves the selection, organization, and interpretation of both primary and secondary sources. We reviewed 20 documents, including policies, academic papers, and institutional reports. Finally, we use 4 phases. The first one, we define the search criteria using some keywords that we use in the databases. The second, the selection of the criteria. The inclusion was the type of document we mentioned from 2004 to 2024. Also, we use a document coding and categorization. So a matrix was created to organize the information by author, year of publication, and others. And finally, we use the critical discourse analysis, especially the framework of Ferkels and G, to explore the power dynamic and ideological contradiction in these texts. This methodology provides a solid foundation for critically understanding policy discourses. However, it doesn't include field data from actors involved in policy because future research may complement this documentary. This chart represents the frequency of key aspects found in the reviewed literature. It visually emphasizes the dominance of an instrumental approach to bilingualism and highlight the lower frequency of reference to interculturality. This finding can be grouped into 3 main aspects. The first major finding is the instrumental vision of bilingualism. English is viewed primarily as a tool of economic growth, not as a way to promote intercultural dialogue. This market-oriented view often neglects local culture and reinforces a monolithic image of English tied to the US and Europe. The second, Cartagena reality. In Cartagena, the implementation is unequal. Many schools lack trained teachers, intercultural materials, and basic infrastructure. Despite some official efforts, there is no consistent local bilingualism policy. While the city is ethnically and culturally diverse, English teaching often ignores this richness. And the last one, the third and the last one, the tension between discourse and analysis. The documents reveal a clear gap between discourse and reality. Policies set ambitious goals, but they don't reflect the social and educational condition of local communities. Some teachers and students even resist bilingualism because it is perceived as external imposition that disregard their identity. The findings of this research provide a critical understanding of the tension between official bilingualist discourse in Colombia and the local education realities, particularly in Cartagena. First of all, it confirms that bilingualist policies have adopted an instrumental approach. The perspective is based on the idea of English as a tool for economic competitiveness and global positioning, highlighting key aspects such as cultural identity, sociolinguistic context, and territorial diversity. Second, the analysis of policy implementation in Cartagena revealed deep inequalities among educational institutions, mainly in terms of access to resources, teacher training, and pedagogical materials. This inequality limits the ability to achieve the goals set by national policies, especially in the city's most vulnerable sectors. Finally, a relevant conclusion is the weak incorporation of the intercultural approach of English teaching. Although some documents mention cultural diversity, this is not reflected in concrete pedagogical practices that promote critical reflection, dialogue of knowledge, and recognition of local realities. Such an oversight represents a significant contradiction in a city like Cartagena, known for its rich ethnic, historical, and cultural heritage. Likewise, tensions are identified between official discourse and actual school practices. Furthermore, this research is significant and it offers a critical and contextualized perspective of the bilingualist debate here in Colombia, highlighting both theoretical and practical gaps in policy design and classroom implementation. Its main contribution lies in proposing an intercultural approach that acknowledges the sociocultural particularities of Colombian Caribbean region. On the other hand, one of the limitations of this initial phase is its documentary approach, which doesn't yet incorporate the direct voices of educational actors. However, as mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, they represent the development of the first objective of a doctoral research project. Future research aims to adopt participatory methodology that involves teachers, students, and community in reflecting on their bilingualism practices. There is an urgent need for more inclusive, contextualized, and culturally meaningful policies and practices. In closing, this work invites us to rethink bilingualism in Colombia from critical and intercultural perspectives. Cartagena and Colombia as a whole needs policies and practices that value local culture, promote critical reflection, and support teachers and students as an active agents in the process. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much for your attention. Here are some of the references used in this ongoing research.